Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So in today's message, we're going to be talking about a lot of things, but we're going to be inspired by a quote from this book, which is a really incredible book. I read it many years ago. There's a lot to it. It's essentially about the history of philosophy. In fact, that's the subtitle, a novel about the history of philosophy. And so it just kind of gives you, it just touches on a little bit of philosophy throughout the ages from different philosophers. And so it's very interesting, and it's spun within a story that just it's kind of like a mystery. And so the whole time you're learning, you're also kind of going on this journey, and it's fun, trying to figure out what's going on with the main characters. So if you have the time and you have interest in this kind of stuff, I recommend it. When I read the book many years ago, I didn't quite understand the ending of it, the explanation, but I think it was just a combination of things. I think that I probably didn't give it quite the attention I should have, and also I was just at a different point, on my journey back then. And so it's funny how you can pick books back up and reread them, and they can have a totally new meaning for you the second time around, But we're going to open with that. And just to kind of give you a summary of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about how subtle, or how subtly rather, our life gets thrown out of balance, okay, and how this is done on purpose. It's a tactic, and we're going to try to follow and connect some pathways, you might say, of control, okay? We're talking about wolves in sheep's clothing, and we're talking about how they are very tactical in controlling our perception of everything, right? It's kind of like we have a plan, in regards to our life. We have goals, and we think that we can see how to get there. I'm just imagining like a roadmap, and I'm able to make sense of this. I'm very visual, right? I'm visually oriented, and I'm trying to figure things out, love metaphor, analogies. And so if you just imagine that, we all have our own personal roadmap, there's certain stops we want to, make along the way. And ultimately there's some big goals that we want to get to at some point in our life, and if you're with, a life partner, spouse, whatever it is, or even a close friend or family member, a business partner, someone that you're really, engaged with, entangled with, they're a big part of your life. You kind of, as you talk through your plans about life, you assume that you're on the path together, see? And what happens is we don't realize that over time, they come in and subtly change the way our map looks. We still think that we're going to those same destinations at the end, but they have these secret destinations that they're actually subtly directing us to, see? So it's kind of like our plans, our roadmap gets hijacked in that manner, see? And so because, and we're going to talk about, possible reasons and all this stuff, but let's open with this quote. And again, if I haven't said it, I hope you're doing well today. And I know this kind of stuff can get heavy, sometimes, but we're going to look at it with from a positive viewpoint. And I just hope that it serves to get the wheels turning for you, and to help build you up, and to help you feel empowered, and to bring some puzzle pieces together, to connect some dots. And so I just hope that I'm able to bring a message to you today that does that. So. All right, so if you have the book on paperback, it's going to be on page 297. And the quote is, Aristotle pointed out that nothing exists in consciousness that has not first been experienced by the senses. Really, really important. And then I'm going to read the rest of it, okay? Plato would have said there is nothing in the natural world that has not first existed in the world of ideas. So we have these, again, we have kind of like objective and subjective competing, right? Aristotle held that Plato was thus doubling the number of things. And that's how I see this. That's how I see their tactics. It's kind of like this overlay of their plans on top of ours, and they slowly over time get us to see and live in their world of ideas, and we mistake that for reality. We have adopted their subjective reality, and that's why we feel so separated from ourselves. Although we don't, from my experience, and when you're in it, you don't have the language to put to it, to put to your experience. You don't have the terms and the psychological maneuvers, the definitions that are related to those. You don't have all of that like in your toolbox, so you're just kind of grasping at language the best you can to try and make sense and define what you're going through. But that's why I think story form, fairy tale, folklore, myth, metaphor, analogy, all that kind of stuff is very helpful. Again, even Jesus taught in parables, to make these really abstract, complex topics more relatable to the lay person, right? Putting everything in layman's terms. And I feel like when possible, direct communication is the best, because again, this kind of highlights the fact that people who live in deceit and weave webs of lies, that's their realm, is this kind of gray area, kind of subjective area, right? And so this is really important too. Let me just wrote this in. I'm trying not to go way off on a tangent too far, but but it's kind of like if you are targeted or you think you may be, I think it's really important to safeguard and treat all of your new connections like pearls, and to keep that kind of stuff private. And so, because if you don't, that's where the water can get muddied by these people looking to interject and sabotage, beautiful connections. And so it's just something to think about. But because there's always, people who are jealous, people who have whatever kind of intentions they have and feelings they have about, you and your life. And I think we dismiss this kind of stuff like, nah, nobody else really cares about what's going on in my life, because you're thinking, why would they? It's like, I'm just me. I'm not like famous. It's not like I have this grand importance or whatever. So why would anybody else care? But there are people who just have these bad intentions and can target anyone, right? And want to sabotage good things in their life. And when you go through particular experiences in life, you understand that. And so again, just consider that trying to make sure that you safeguard the things that are important to you, trying to make sure that you bring as much clarity to your own mind and within your own life, and your anyone you're trying to connect with, things like that. Clarity is just so important, right? Because if you're not careful, someone can slip in and try to do a he said, she said kind of scenario, and the term is triangulate, right? And then if you never get together and compare stories, well, then people just can wind up you can make assumptions about a new friend, for example, and just part ways, and it was just unnecessary. That's why I'm always talking about, not making assumptions. I experienced this in high school even, with a very good close friend, and then another friend who was going between the two of us, saying, she's saying this about you, and she's saying this about you, and I knew something was up right then, see. But what was interesting was, if the other person is actually, it's kind of like if this third party is telling half-truths, especially with one person and not the other, then it can expose the other person if they're actually guilty, right? But I knew I wasn't doing that. So it's kind of like, it taught me a lesson, which I've never cared for gossip and that kind of stuff anyway, and tried my very best to avoid it my whole life, and thought that when I got out of school then I would be with, mature people out in the real world. I didn't think this kind of stuff still went on. I was obviously very hopeful, naive, so interesting. But yeah, what a disappointment, right? To grow up and realize this kind of stuff still goes on in the real world, quote unquote. But the only reason, I have the passion that I do to talk about this stuff is, I think for a lot of us, we think this stuff is petty and not even worth our time to talk about, or, much less think about, except for the fact that some of us have experienced, really the discovery. We have experienced discovering how some people can actually have very malicious intent. And so these are the same signs. See, it's a spectrum. Evil, or whatever the acts are of the wolves in sheep's clothing, they're all similar, but their intentions are on a spectrum. From mild, just being, petty and immature over here, and truly not worth your time trying to decipher, all their actions. But then over here, see, those same actions that seem petty can indicate something really important that you really need to pay attention to. So, and that's what a lot of people don't get, see. A lot of people, and I say this just from my experience, when you go through something really crazy, it's so crazy that if you try to share details with people, they won't believe it. They won't believe it. It's very disheartening, and it can put you in a position where it's you got to be strong, and you got to trust your own eyes and ears and experience, right? But when you find others who have been through the same kind of stuff, it's very validating, and it's very healing too, to find those others like you that you can relate to, and those, turn out to be your people, the people that get you. And it just, to me, the positive spin on this is they shine even brighter than ever before. Okay, it's like you're on this mountaintop and you're able to see the bigger picture, right? And it just makes things a lot clearer for us. So essentially, how we become disempowered, which is on purpose, when closely involved with a wolf in sheep's clothing, we become disempowered because they intentionally cultivate this microscopic view or perspective within us. Okay, they get us focused on things. Okay, tasks, requests, their drama, the big gifts they might give us, or anything. It's just like they try to just create these things for us to focus on, to basically give us blinders. Okay, and so they're trying to cut off our access. They're disrupting our access to our senses. That's how they can hide and go do whatever they're doing in their second hidden life, or whatever plans they're lining up to, exploit you, in just, I guess, a variety of ways. I don't even know how all this stuff works, but it can come down to them looking at you and seeing dollar signs, right? But they deny us accessibility, right, to what our senses would have detected if we had not been encouraged to be so focused on something. So it disrupts our sensory input. They also manipulate our emotions to keep us in line with their plan, right? Focused on what they want us focused on. And then also they replace, in this process, our objective reality that normally we would have access to via our senses. They replace that with their subjective reality. See, the world of ideas, like Plato said in the quote. And then we are conditioned to buy into that and to stay in that reality because we're shamed, and we're they work our emotions. to keep us separated from ourselves or from objective reality, from truth. Not just our truth and ourselves, but the real truth. See? So, yes, tactics like pressure and criticism are used to keep us focused on what they tell you matters, right? What they deem as priority. So, this can be very, very elusive and confusing, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes they don't have us focused on problems to solve. Sometimes it's not drama. Sometimes it's our hobbies. And, you know, I think it's very healthy for all of us to have, you know, our own thing going, even if you're involved with someone, like in a relationship. Everybody needs alone time, you know. But if this person is encouraging you to spend like excessive time on this solitary activity or hobby, and it starts to feel like an expectation, and you start to feel pressure to just go away and do this, then sometimes I think we walk out of these situations and we're like, why can't I enjoy painting anymore? Or why can't I enjoy whatever my old self used to love, you know? Well, that's why. That joy that used to be associated with that activity gets stripped from it because it became an expectation, right? They just wanted us to just go down that rabbit hole of our hobby and just stay there while they went off and did whatever they were doing, see, behind our back. And so, anytime you feel pressure, like I'll tell you, I used to love art, and I thought it would be great to have a career in it, you know, and it was when I was teaching, but prior to that, I had a job in environmental graphic design, and I thought it would be really cool, but it wound up taking the joy away from the creative process because there was pressure applied to it, right? It's kind of like you hear a lot of people say anytime you bring money into the situation, and it's like, you try to turn your joy into a business. I think for some people it works, but for some people it takes the joy away. And so that's what happens with these people, okay? And it really comes down to anytime freedom or free will is taken away, right? There's no joy. Suddenly it's like you can't just follow your heart and do this stuff in your own time. When you feel the calling, it's an expectation. Again, there's pressure. Yes. So if you notice, there's this unspoken agreement that we are placed into when engaged in some way with a controller, okay? So let's define controller. Because for many of us, it's outside of our framework. You know, we don't understand the workings of someone like this. So from Oxford Languages Online, it says a person who directs, regulates, or restrains. So we're going to glean from this definition, okay? And if you're making notes or journaling or whatever, I just encourage you to write down these three things. So again, we have a person who directs, regulates, or restrains. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper now. We're going to take a unique approach. So what is happening is we are a resource to someone who exploits, okay? When you are bound by a controller, that's essentially what it is. You are bound or imprisoned, right? Psychologically, so that you can be used. So in order for them to use us as a resource, we have to be secured, okay? To secure something with free will, though, it must be restrained. Restrained, okay? We have those three things: direct, regulate, restrain. So to restrain something with free will, it must be directed. To direct something with free will, it must be regulated. So here again, we're gleaning some insight from this sheer, just simple definition of controller. All right, so let's take a deeper dive. Oxford Languages defines regulate as to control or maintain the rate or speed of, and then it says a machine or a process, right? Because we're treated that way. We're objectified in that way, so that it operates properly. Okay? The rate or speed of, when it says that, this is where our emotions can be hijacked, okay, and exploited as a doorway into the ability to control us. So if we feel pressure, condescension, intense bad energy, anger directed toward us, exclusion, like in the silent treatment, right? All these things, or even pushed just excessively to do our hobby or whatever it is, this pressure, it's the feeling that these things produce that creates the motivation to walk the line. So they induce these uncomfortable feelings in us, right? To do and to be what and how they want us to do and be, okay? So they always justify their tactics too. And we end up feeling like we're the ones with a problem for feeling bad or stressed. So I can totally see the appeal of stoicism to people, to take control of their emotions so they can't be hijacked again. And I think that it's important to remember emotions are messengers, you know. It's just a matter of, do we want to hear the message or not, you know? Because honestly, I think passion's a good thing. I just do. I think there's a fine line. There is a line, but there's a fine line between becoming so flatlined emotionally that you're robotic, you know, and being stoic. I think that controlling, having that, emotional intelligence, that's important. But I think that passion's important too, you know, and I don't think we should give that up. It's just that we need to have control. We need to be the ones in control of it, not an outside person, right? Because passion's a great thing in the right circumstances and when we are in control of it, right? So, again, emotions are messengers. So, do we want to hear the message or not that they have to speak to us? I think it's when we don't want to hear that message that they kind of start to feel like a separate entity, like they're out of control. We don't have control over them because we create this psychological distance and disconnect from the emotions because of the message attached to them, see? So it's kind of like being strong enough to hear that message and then we're not disconnected, you know, that way we have control over those emotions. So, yeah. So, again, these people, they condition us in so many ways, and they also condition us to become consciously blind to our inner messaging, right? So it's important to differentiate between the message and the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, you know. In other words, I would just encourage you not to view all emotions as bad, you know, or even passion in general as bad. Or the other saying is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But, you know, in other words, it's not our emotions that are the enemy, right? Okay. So, yeah. So when we can regulate our own heart rate and breathing in the midst of shock or triggers, then we hold the power, right? I've got so many notes, y'all. Yeah, so subtle power plays can be evident if we zoom in, or identified if we zoom in on our interactions. It's kind of like if we hyper focus in the present moment, if we're able to. And so you can't do that if you've kind of unconsciously cultivated a habit of spacing out, of dissociating, you know, and stress. It's like it does require strength. It's just, I view all this stuff as just simply opportunities to overcome, you know, difficulties. And but when you're strong enough to be with something that challenges you emotionally, your belief structure, all this stuff, then you can be present. So you have to be strong enough to be present, and then when you're present, then you can be intentionally focused, hyper-focused on this interaction with this other person. And that is going to keep you way more protected than if you know, come into contact with this person unable to be present because of past trauma. So, you know, there's probably just a multitude of goals or destinations that these controllers have in mind, but I'll just list a few for you. A facade, just you being a part of their facade so that they can have this hidden life. They may want to exploit you for money in some way, for your connections, for your network, just for fun. Just this, I forget what the term is, but it's like a Machiavellianism or something, where it's like a grown bully just having a good time, just tearing you down, right? Screwing with you, you might say. Or they may consider you competition, real or imagined. I'm thinking of like the workplace. There's all kind of different motivations that people have to want to control you in some way, right? Or have some type of persuasive impact on you. But just remember that we are restrained. And when I say restrained, it's like, what is restrained? Because we're not physically restrained. It's like our free will and our awareness is restrained, right? But we're unaware of it. We're unconscious of this fact. We're unaware of it, right? So we are restrained unknowingly through being directed unknowingly, because they regulate our attention and emotions to meet their goals. That's how I see those three parts and pieces of the definition of controller working together. To me, it just gave me a lot of insight. But this is why we must operate from our own moral compass. You just can't give too much credence to what another person thinks about you. You just can't. You just have to be confident in who you are and what you are, and understand that people will fall away and you're not for everybody. I've seen a lot of funny and cute memes floating around, like you're not, and then fill in the blank, you're not, a caramel frappuccino or whatever, you can't please everyone or whatever. So, but yeah, we have to follow our own moral compass and be wise and patient enough. Patience is a big key. To meet our own kind of people, to associate with, to be friends with, to date, to get to know. It's crucial, really. And again, we can't live with our own primary intention being to not upset somebody else, even somebody we love, and that's hard. Because either we're compatible with someone or we're not. Does this person have good conversational skills? Are they willing to sit down with you, one-on-one and stick in and with the conversation and not abandon it, and not, you can abandon the conversation by physically leaving, or by changing the topic, or by belittling and making light of, or making jokes, or just trying to throw in word salad and just take you way off the path into topics that aren't related. So that's critical. I have found that the people that are your kind of people are the ones who can stick with you in conversation, and it's reciprocal. And so, but this kind of stuff, again, if people haven't gone through it, then, they may think you're being petty. But those of us who have been through some stuff, we understand that these seemingly petty signs can actually, if you learn to really stay conscious and identify them, that can save your life. Being able to identify this stuff can save your life, right? So questions to ask yourself going forward. This is what I've come up with. Do you feel restrained in some way? Emotionally, psychologically, like you can't be yourself, like you can't just do things in your own pace, in your own timing, in your own way. Do you feel constricted and restrained in some way, right? Because even without, actual evidence, that it matters, because that'll come later. It'll come later. You'll get your validation at some point. Do you notice subtle directives? Okay. So, yeah, again, these can alert you. I'm talking about like really subtle, just subtle persuasive comments. You have to be really able to be present. You're not distracted by past traumas and hurt and stuff you're dealing with. See, that can steal the present moment from you. But if you're really attentive, are you noticing subtle directives? Because this can alert you to very real danger. Okay. It's kind of like if you could see this other person's, subjective reality roadmap overlaid on top of the objective one. then all the parts of it would make sense if you could see their destination. Because hindsight, when you find out a person's plans for you, it's like now suddenly everything that was confusing along the way makes sense. Okay? Does this person have the ability to regulate your heartbeat, your stress hormones? A healthy partnership or even friendship, any kind of relationship, is one walked side by side, right? Not one where you're behind or in front of. It's truly, these metaphors are very helpful to me, right? So always consider balance and reason where possible. Eliminate any areas of exploitation, identify and correct, and no words are needed, no explanation is needed, okay? So that's how we keep our armor intact, kind of like showing off your sword just a little bit. You don't have to be loud about it, and they'll know. If a person has hidden intentions and bad intentions and stuff, then they'll know. You can just be just as subtle as they are in protecting yourself and not, I think the word is subjugating to their pressure or whatever, and they'll get the point. Okay. Again, and I know this from experience, sometimes even a look, a whisper, or even just no words but a look will do the trick. Sometimes they'll literally just in that moment cave and be like, I know, I'm sorry, I know I have a problem, I know. So, yeah. Okay. So being direct with some people is just really the way to go. I talk about the gray area a lot on my channel in regards to your own psyche and just trying to be balanced with reason. But as far as, interactions with another person, a gray area is to me, kind of, it's just a situation where a lot of things can go wrong. You can be exploited, there can be misunderstandings, there can be assumptions made, a third party can come in and fool you in some way and just get in the middle of or mess up a connection, or there's gray areas with regards to, a connection with someone. It's just not ideal, to say the least. That's what I would say, okay? But yeah, in other words, your engagement with another person shouldn't be confusing. So let's see here. Yes. So as far as a gray area, talking about that, certainty, directness, and all this, right? Again, the gray area of your mind, where you're just kind of working things out, trying to make sense of things within your own mind, that to me should be part of your treasure chest, and should stay reserved and preserved with your pearls, okay? Because that way, again, it's something that you're working out within your own mind, and you're keeping it protected from someone who's looking to come in and exploit you in some way, okay? If you put this mental gray area out on display for others, and it comes across like you being not really sure of yourself and stuff, like, even if you are really unsure, even if you're in a situation right now that you're just really unsure about and you're just trying to work it out in your mind, when you put that out in the open in front of people, especially people you don't know that well, or the public or whatever, that's like, to me, it's like showing, wolves in sheep's clothing, that there's an area of uncertainty, and it's like a big juicy steak for a vampire. That's exactly how I see it. It's like, and I'm a very honest, open person, and I don't think you have to lie and say you're certain about a situation or something if you're not, but it's just, if you present something where you're unsure of, conclusions or whatever, which we all really should be. I don't think certainty is really a good thing at all. I think that as you're learning and growing, it's again like that Bible verse, let those who think that they're wise, become fools so that they may become wise. So, but if you're just going around kind of with this essence, this persona that's just emanating uncertainty, these wolves in sheep's clothing see that as an opportunity. So just make sure that you pair that with the certainty being that you have your own methods and or connections for advice and help, input, and in other words, make sure that the access for influence is closed, and sometimes you want to, what's the word I want to use? It's kind of like you want to make someone feel good if they're giving you input, but don't let that go so far that you start to actually lay down where you were going with something in your own mind and they jump in the driver's seat. See? So you have to be bold. Sometimes you can't worry about what others are going to think about you. It truly does, and I know this firsthand, it takes restrained boldness to make a bully back off. And I've seen it many times. So you take your power back when you restrain these kind of people with your boundaries. Boundaries of what? I would say of self-authority. The more sure they see that you are of yourself, the less uncertainty they see, then it's kind of, to me, it's like saying, I don't need directions. I've got my own roadmap. I don't need you to plop yours down on top of mine. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I got my roadmap. I don't see everything up ahead yet, but I know where I'm going, and I don't need you to jump in that driver's seat. It's kind of like taking on that mentality will help you to respond to these people correctly in the right moment. It's almost like we're shifting our mindset with these metaphors and analogies so that it's like a seed planted within us, okay, energetically, spiritually, so that you don't have to stress, because there's no way you'll ever know what all different kind of tactics and approaches these wolves in sheep's clothing are going to use with you throughout time. And it doesn't matter, because if you have that seed of certainty, of assuredness, okay, in your own roadmap, then whenever they approach you, you're going to be able to respond in the right way. It'll just come, okay, kind of like that divine numinous part of you will speak for you. But you have to be rooted and grounded in what you know to be true and certain of that. See, even if everything else is foggy and unclear, you have that, okay, and they can see that if you have it or not. So, and just please, I encourage you, if you do seek any professional help, with a therapist or whatever, just make sure you vet them, and you feel good about them, before you go too far. So, again, if let me just leave you with this. By working out your own place of being rooted and grounded in your truth, and you feel truly certain of that one thing, just that one thing, it's going to emanate this presence from you to all who approach you, of like this secured fortress, complete with armed guards. You're gonna be perceived in that manner from someone who's looking for a target, and they're just gonna know, don't mess with you. Or if they try, it's not gonna last. And so yes, so you can still be you, and please still be you, please. You can still be free to genuinely just be your own unique self. But the message, again, to people that you don't really know needs to be one of, make no mistake, I see you, and I'm certainly not going to let you in the driver's seat. Right? So they have to know that you're keeping your eye on the bigger picture, because again, when you see their map, when you have a good grasp on their tactics of trying to overlay your reality with their subjective reality and get you to buy into it. It's kind of like when they meet with you and you understand kind of what's going on, then it's like your message to them is, I see the whole map, and there's nowhere that you can hide at this point, because I've been there and done that, and I'm secured. So I hope this has been empowering, encouraging, inspiring. I hope most of all it got the wheels turning for you. Thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. And hey, if you've read this book, I'd love to hear from you. Just what your overall impression of it was. And it was confusing. If you've read it, you'll know what I'm saying, like with the characters, Hild and Sophia, and or Sophie rather. I don't know why I said Sophia, but yeah, just the interchange between the characters. So again, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on it. And I just, again, thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.